Welcome back, everyone. Jim Beebe and Lucas Lorian here. Athlete Builder Podcast. Today, we are very fortunate to have Rebecca Rouse. She's talking to us out of Dallas, Texas. Awesome background. Met her through Jocko Fuel indirectly. Has a gymnastics background, now competes in weightlifting. For those that don't know, weightlifting, snatch and clean and jerk, not powerlifting, squat, bench, deadlift. So weightlifting, but also has several other endeavors. I'm looking at, she's the founder of Semper Strong, online fitness platform, helping and empower members and clients worldwide to become mentally and physically stronger, more resilient. Also works in Dallas at Resiliency Brain Health, functional neurology clinic that treats post 9/11 combat veterans with TBIs, traumatic brain injuries. Along with her Semper Stronger fitness platform, very charitable person, she set up the Semper Stronger Foundation, which also supports active military veterans and first responders with all their wellness initiatives. So we have Rebecca on today. Welcome. Thank you for joining us at Athlete Builder. Very, very happy and lucky to have you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's great to be here.
You're welcome. So you're married to Joel Del Rosario, and he's a Marine.
Yep.
Which makes sense. Which makes sense with the Semper Stronger, Semper Fi, always faithful, right?
Correct. Yep.
Semper Stronger, always stronger. So, how did you guys meet up?
Joel and I met in college, actually, at the
Okay.
gym. Nobody's ever surprised to hear that. And so he ended up at University of Maryland, which is where I was. I was getting my sophomore year. He was in his first year, but he went to college a little bit later. He was in Afghanistan and deployed overseas, and then decided to apply to go through the enlisted to officer program. Got accepted, and they sent him to the University of Maryland. And so he was going through school so he could become an officer, because in order to become an officer, you have to have a college degree.
Yep.
And so I was there going through my 4 years, and we met at the gym, met through mutual friends, and then became friends, started dating about a year later.
Awesome. So, growing up, you guys started, right out of the bat, gymnastics, which, in my opinion, probably the best endeavor for anybody, male or female, because it gets your body moving in all the right directions. Great body awareness, mechanics. Did that all the way up to high school, right?
Correct.
But no high school sports.
I actually did cheerleading for 2 years, which still makes me laugh because I definitely am not your typical cheerleader type, but it was the most transferable from gymnastics. And I had never done any other sports as a kid because gymnastics took up most of my life outside of school. So I had the flexibility and the tumbling skills and all of the strength required to be a good cheerleader, and none of the spirit and cheer part of the cheerleading. So I was really good at tumbling and being a great base, and horrible at being smiling and being spirited and all that. So I did it for
Gotcha.
2 years just so I could do my PE credits, and then I didn't do it after that. So that was my short stint in cheerleading.
But seem to have like a competitive nature. Gymnastics is hard. You're pushing, and so you get into college and you're like, hey, I still want to be physical. So you found your way back into the gym, and at that point, you're probably kind of like experimenting. I saw some bodybuilding stuff, some powerlifting, some functional. So I'm guessing some CrossFit might have been in there. So the next 4 years is kind of figuring things out. Is that right?
Pretty much. I found my way into the weight room, like you said. At the time, this was 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13. There were not a lot of women in the weight room. And because of my gymnastics background, I was confident enough to know my way around and started to read bodybuilding.com. I think we've all probably been there at some point. So
Yep.
read bodybuilding.com articles, learned about all the muscle groups, what exercises work which muscles. So I started to really learn and appreciate the art of physical movements and building muscle and fitness. So that was kind of my introduction to that. And it was really after college when I became certified as a personal trainer and started to learn more about actual anatomy, physiology, exercise science, and all of that, that I went into the direction of more functional fitness, learned about kettlebells and barbells and all the other stuff. So definitely bodybuilding focus in college and more functional training after that.
Gotcha. So with the businesses that you're in, the Semper Strong, the military background, you're a public speaker, you're speaking this week, even in Indianapolis. So obviously there's military ties. Is that did that stem from you and your relationship with Joel, or is that before because you have other members in the military, or is that just a component of your identity that you've had for a long, long time?
Primarily through Joel. My grandpa was in the Navy, but it wasn't like something he talked about when I was growing up. So I didn't really have any ties to the military in my family. But like I said before, Joel and I met my sophomore year of college, and through him, most of the people that I'm still in touch with from college are people I met through him, and a lot of former or current military. And so I learned a lot more about the military through him, and it kind of opened my eyes to a world I knew nothing about. And I decided I loved the grit and the tenacity and the servant leadership and just all of the things that military members embody. And at the time, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I don't think I declared my major until my sophomore year, and I was just kind of lost. And I was like, that sounds like something I would like as well. So I joined the ROTC program my sophomore year, and I had planned to join the military as well. But I was diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune disease that is disqualifying for all branches of service. So I actually wasn't able to pursue military service at all. They kicked me out of the ROTC program my second semester, and I found my path towards physical fitness and health and wellness and decided to go that route instead.
Gotcha.
And so through Joel and our journey together, and then all the people I met through him, my inability to actually serve in the military in uniform kind of ultimately 10 years later led me down this path of wanting to take the knowledge and the experience that I've gained through my career and apply it to those who do serve. So that's kind of where I am now.
So you can see that, man. You had a a goal, and there's a roadblock, an obstacle that's you really can't overcome. But you can still find a way to meet that need in your identity. I totally get that because with Lucas and me, he's a strength coach up in Fort Wayne, working with youth. I work with youth, and that's kind of the need that I didn't really do much as an athlete as a child, so I'm getting that need met now indirectly. And Lucas was a much better athlete, and he's still training kids. So I totally identify and get that. And then, as you probably don't know, but I'm always very, very thankful and humbled by anybody in the military service. And so we have those in first responders at our gym. So it's just great to be around them. Too bad about the immune disease. I think I saw it was ulcerative colitis.
Yep.
That's gotta be annoying as shit, right?
Quite literally, yes. It's inflammatory
Exactly.
bowel disease. And so, yeah, I was diagnosed right at the beginning of college, and I was really sick all through school. I almost had to drop out of college because I was really struggling to get it under control. I had pretty bad stress management techniques at the time and didn't know nearly as much as I do now about the body and stress and the brain and sleep and all the things that I now implemented to my life. But it's been a journey. I've learned a lot. I don't obviously it's nobody wants to get diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, but it has taught me a lot about myself, and it's helped me discover things about myself along the way. And so it was a blessing in disguise. Obviously, it prevented me from joining the military, but I gained so much from the path that I did go down as a health and fitness professional, as a strength coach, and as an athlete. So it's definitely a big part of who I am and shaped me today.
If you're anything like me in college, one of my main ways to deal with stress is just go out and have a few beers. And then in terms of like getting enough sleep at night, well, after you hit Taco Bell after those few beers, there's obviously there's a maturity component. Gym at 49 versus gym at 21, completely different animal. When you have a setback like that, though, you're blessed to learn a lot more things about yourself that you may not have learned. Also blessed that I probably learned some more about nutrition and how all
Yeah,
that impacts recovery and how all that impacts you. So armed with that increased knowledge still ended up being a positive thing because you use that increased knowledge and then you funnel it out to other folks that you're coaching and training. So that pain point ends up being another blessing for you. So that that
absolutely.
that's awesome. Now, but I did see here though a figure competition in bodybuilding that Lucas just did that late last year, had a whole bunch of awards in it. He said he was a little hangry for a few weeks leading up to it, but usually the lifters just want to keep adding to their totals and getting bigger and stronger. But that physique, that fitness, that bodybuilding show is you got to be able to have the size, and you got to put on a show, and then you got to cut everything out. How do you How did you? Is it just a one and done? That's right, just one time, right?
Yep, I did that once in college. Joel and I did it together, and it was kind of just like the first of, I guess, kind of the first in my adult life of let's see how far we can go. Let's try to sign up for something hard and train for it. And it wasn't until years later that I got into weightlifting and decided I really wanted to get back into competition. But this was, let's see, that was 2012. So I think it was junior year of college. So I was 3 years into bodybuilding, really enjoying and embracing the process of hypertrophy, building muscle, learning about how nutrition fluctuate, the calorie fluctuations and cutting and gaining and all that stuff. So it seemed logical to train for 3 years as a bodybuilder and then do a show. And then it was definitely a one and done after going through it and realizing, because it was also around the same time that I started to get really into health and wellness and nutrition. And then as a bodybuilder, going through that and doing the diet and seeing what that does, especially to women. And that was the only time in my life that I've lost my menstrual cycle, was when I was cutting for that show.
Sure.
And so it just opened my eyes to what the public perceives as healthy and well and fit, and then feeling like I'm doing the opposite. That was my personal experience. And I know that's not the case for everybody, but I do know that is the case for many people, where they develop bad relationships with food and exercise. It becomes like an obsession. There's a lot of guilt around all of that. And so it didn't really fit into what I was trying to pursue in terms of a career as a health and fitness professional. It just didn't feel healthy or fit. And I felt like there was a better way, and I just felt a little hypocritical doing it. And so I'm glad I got to experience it firsthand and can speak to that experience now all these years later and working with different types of clientele as a coach. But so yeah, it's an experience I'm glad I had, but it's definitely not one I want to do again. And many years later, now I'm focused much more on performance and strength. And I still get mistaken for a bodybuilder. More people think I'm a bodybuilder than a weightlifter. I get CrossFitter and bodybuilder more than anything. Part of that's just the way I'm built, but it's very, very different when you focus on how strong can I get, how many kilos can I add to my total versus how lean, how tan, how beautified with the and all the suit and all the things. It was just very, very different priorities. And I'm glad I went the direction that I did with my training.
Like the biggest thing I got from my experience bodybuilding, because it was definitely it's a one and done thing for me as well, was everything that because when I trained in college and for powerlifting, Olympic lifting, bodybuilding taught me how much I neglected everything outside of training. It's just being able to apply all those kind of the nutrition and the sleep and supplementing right. Taking that from bodybuilding and implementing it into weightlifting has been probably the biggest thing I got from my experience, which I felt real comfortable, felt really good at my competition, my weightlifting competition weight compared to how I used to feel.
Yeah,
it's just a great thought about that, and what you can learn from bodybuilding into going into something else. So
totally. And all of them require an immense amount of hard work, an immense amount of discipline and focus and structure. And I take none of that away from anyone who does any of those types of sports. It just, for me personally, my values, bodybuilding just did not fit. So, but I agree with you. Definitely the good things I did learn from that, I can apply to my career as a weightlifter for sure.
Well, a couple things there. One, whenever you're really competing at a high level, regardless of the sport, that's not trying to be well-rounded and healthy.
True.
Competing at weightlifting or competing at powerlifting or bodybuilding, you're trying to win, which means you're doing a lot of things, putting your body and your mind through a lot more stress than it probably needs, but it absolutely needs that in order to win. So having that background is going to be critical, especially when you have people that come to you and they say, hey, I want to compete. If you don't have any kind of reference point, that's going to be hard to be a coach. But two, it's really I always talk to my athletes, and God bless them, they're student athletes. The real non-sexy thing about being the athlete is the food and the recovery, right? They all want to lift, they all want to have the better 40 time, they want to jump higher, blah blah blah. But so many times they just show up underhydrated, underfed, and they're like, "Man, I'm tired. I just can't lift today." I'm like, "No shit. It's not because it's not sure as shit, not because it's heavy." They said they didn't do those little things, and it's not even little. Sometimes it's big things, So just so behind. But once you have that reference point, you really realize the correlation and then causation of how critical the food component is for your performance. Yep.
Totally.
So when did you start transitioning and start saying, you know what, I'm strong, I'm lean, but I might got a shot here in Olympic lifting. Maybe I should look at that a little bit more deeply, start training for a meet. When did that occur and transition? How did that come about?
Not till many years later, actually. So the bodybuilding thing the show was 2012. I graduated college in 2013, and then Joel and I moved across the country after we both finished school, and he was starting his career as an officer. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I got my 2 degrees in Spanish and public health and decided to do nothing with either of them. And I became a personal trainer instead, knowing that when he got stationed where he did for the first duty station after college, it was only a 1 year stint, and it was in 29 Palms, California, which, if any of your listeners know where that is, it's in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing there. It's high desert, California. All they have there is the military base, and that's about it. So there was not a whole lot going on there for a recent graduate trying to start a career like myself. So I actually moved back in with my parents for that year while he was going through his training for his MOS. And I started working at Equinox, which is just like a high-end luxury gym, regular commercial gym, but on the higher end. And so I became a personal trainer and got really into the world of functional fitness. Equinox does a great job of educating their trainers. There's a mandatory curriculum, and then there's a lot of different additional certifications you can pursue provided by the company. So I got a kettlebell certification, I got a body weight training certification, I got TRX, I got, what else did I get? I don't know, just all different types of functional training tools that they have in the gym. And so I learned how to use them, how to coach them. And so I spent the next, 2014 through 2018 or so, just getting as much knowledge and practice as I could with all these different types of tools. I got really into kettlebell training during that time. I got certified through Strong First and started coaching a lot of kettlebells and doing a lot of kettlebells in my own training. I dabbled a little bit into some of the CrossFit type stuff around that time as well, but not deeply. But I just really enjoyed the process of getting stronger, fitter, and all of that. So in 2018, we got sent back to the East Coast from the Marine Corps. He got a new duty station. We moved to New Jersey, and I worked at Equinox in New York City. And it was a very big gym. I was a manager at the time. I had 50 trainers that I was managing, and it was a huge club. We had like 5,000 members, and I knew that if I didn't schedule time for myself to get my own workout in, that work would swallow me alive. Like I would go, I'm a very hard worker in everything that I do. And so I knew that I would work hard and I would work long hours, but I also needed to make sure that I set aside time for my own training. And so I decided to hire a coach and make sure that if I have those 3 appointments on my calendar each week working with my trainer, that I would at least have that time for myself to focus on my own fitness and wellness. So I hired him with no specific goal in mind, and I had not really done any kind of Olympic weightlifting prior to that. I got the USAW certification, but then I didn't do anything with it. So I knew a little bit about the snatch and the clean and jerk, but I had never really practiced much on my own. I dabbled a little bit right after the cert just to try to implement what I learned, but I didn't compete or get into coaching or anything like that. So 2018, when we moved to the East Coast, I hired this coach, and I said, I was at 27 years old at the time, and I said, I'm kind of getting the bug to compete again. And I don't know where it came from, but I think it was just knowing that I was going to have such a rigid schedule. I needed to go all in on something and be very focused because that just works for me. So I said, I'm leaning towards competing in something. I want it to be strength focused, definitely not bodybuilding, but something that strength focused. And I'm leaning towards powerlifting or Olympic lifting. I just want to lift heavy stuff. And so he himself was and is still an Olympic weightlifting coach and athlete, competitor. And so he told me, with your gymnastics background and your mobility and your foundation of strength that you have already, I think you'd be really good at weightlifting. So if you want to give it a go, let's do it. So I said, sure. That was August of 2018 that I hired him. And then I did my first meet in February of 2019. So I had 6 months of training, and I did my first meet. My total was, I think, 158 kilos in February of 2019. And then I ended up moving back to the West Coast in 2020, and I did my second meet in 2020. I think I totaled 163. And then COVID hit, and I didn't really do a whole lot of weightlifting. I just sometimes I had a barbell, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I just did kettlebell. So it kind of took a little bit of time off during the COVID period. And then I moved to Texas in 2021 and got connected with the coach that I have now and just took off after that.
Awesome. So with your coach, I think I saw you're on, is it Witherspoon? Is that right? Or no?
Tom Witherspoon is the founder of the Barbell Club. We train at his house. He's like the namesake of Spoon Barbell. And they've been
Gotcha.
training in his garage since 1974. And my coach, Richard Fleming, is they're like best friends. They've been training together for 50 years. And Richard is 76 years old, and he's coached 3 Olympians.
So Richard is your coach then.
Yes.
Awesome. So let me just make sure I'm getting this right. I think I saw American Open Finals. That was you last year, right? Took third overall.
Yep.
That's awesome. It was the 64 kilo weight class, right?
Correct.
91, 110, and 201 for 201 total under for the two lifts combined. That's in kilos, everybody. Multiply that by 2.2, then you'll have the number, right?
Yep. Don't ask me what it is. I have no idea.
440, something like that.
Yeah.
So I was just scanning through the finals and the lifters. There was a little drama there with was it Carly Audia? Is that right? Because
Carly, she bombed
she
out her clean jerks.
that's what it was. She had a solid snatch. She was right there in contention after the snatch, and then went 0 for 3 in a clean and jerk, and then that's the ball game.
Yep,
Dang,
she's phenomenal. I had never met her until that day, but we're still in touch. I talk to her pretty much every week. She's wonderful, and she just competed locally. I think she hit a 97 snatch, so she's killing it.
that's
97
awesome.
115, I think. Yeah.
So for those who don't know, 100 kilos is 220 pounds. So, and then do you come across Taylor Wilkins at all down there in Texas?
She used to live here, and she's in Florida now. She's making her run for the Olympics, but when she lived, I moved to Texas in September of 2021, and she was still living in Texas at the time. We competed against each other in one local meet, I believe, and then she moved to Florida shortly after to focus specific. She left her job at Texas Instruments and went just to focus on weightlifting to Florida.
But she's pretty legit as well.
Yeah, she is insanely strong. I remember watching her lift in person when we were competing against each other, and I was just blown away. She's incredible.
With every sport, there's always an evolution, and the Olympics are no different. And there's some great things happening there, some total bullshit things happening there.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at the Olympics coming up, this summer, right? The there's not even a 64 kilo class any longer, right?
Correct. Yeah, they
So,
got rid of half the weight classes.
so now you either got to cut all the way down to 59 or move up to 71, right?
Me personally, I'm going to do neither of those things because there's no way I'm going to make it to the Olympics. I've very much come to terms with that a long time ago, actually. And I'm 30, I'll be 33 in April. And so clearly I'm not going to Paris. And in 2028, I'll be 37. So
Getting a little
not
older.
never say never, but whenever I get asked this, which I get asked this fairly regularly, the first part of the conversation is always, "Oh, you're an Olympic weightlifter. When did you go to the Olympics?" Like, no, that's not. That's not how that works. It's
Right, right.
Olympics style weightlifting, but that's another conversation. Anyways, the second part of that conversation, when people always ask me, "Are you trying to go to the Olympics?" is the first part is that, like, my age. Not to say it's impossible at 37, but one, the weight class, like to cut to 50. I'm a pretty lean 64. I don't have 10 pounds to lose. I really
No,
don't. So,
that
and
means
then going to 71, like, the 71s now are insanely strong. Olivia Reeves is unstoppable, and Kate Vibert, I don't know if she's going to go 71 or 81 or whatever, but um, so there's that. And then the other part, which is probably the most important thing to me, is just I know what it takes to compete at that level. Those people, like we just talked about Taylor, giving up her whole life, her career, and everything to move to Florida and focus specifically on weightlifting. And I have all the respect and admiration for people who choose to do that. But I have other callings in life that are going to extend well past my weightlifting career.
sure,
And I have to weigh all those factors in the decisions of how I allocate my time. We only have 24 hours in the day, and I have things that I know are going to make a bigger impact. I have athletic goals for sure. I love that I get to even compete at the national level, which is further than I ever imagined I would be in the sport at this age.
sure.
And I'm very content with even making it as far as I have. Not to say I'm never going to rest on my laurels. I'm going to keep pushing as hard as I can for as long as I can. But I also want to dedicate the necessary amount of time to pursue these other things that I know are very important to me, like helping military and veterans and first responders and giving back as much as I can, make an impact.
I get it. I get it. It's okay to have more than one sole focus, and you choose to make an impact somewhere. It's the same as Lucas and me with coaching other athletes. I was just looking at up the 23 World Championships. So in the 71 weight class, like you would have to add 70 kilos to your total alone,
Yeah, it's crazy.
which is a ton. And You don't see a lot of 40-year-olds playing football or basketball, right? There's a general optimum size and shape of every athlete for every sport, and you don't see 50-year-olds, not that you're 50, but playing a lot of sports. So you get it. I get it. You do what you can for you, which is you and your husband and your family, and you also have your other goals and endeavors, and nothing to apologize about that for. That's great. How often, when people say, "Hey, are you a bodybuilder or a CrossFitter?" Right? You know, there's so much misperception. I was telling Lucas the other day, I'm sitting there at this coffee shop, and this guys are talking about a healthy breakfast, and then long story short, they decided that for them to meal prep. All right, meal prep for them, something healthy would be going to Costco and getting a big box of Pop Tarts because those are healthy, right? So there's 1,000% of misperceptions on everything health and wellness and sports, right? But if you're walking around, in a normal bathing suit at the beach, or you're at the pool or whatever, and they see striations in your shoulders, or they see the thickness in your quads or whatever, your back, people come up to you, they're assuming bodybuilding. How often do they come at you with, "Oh, she's juicing. She's got to be on one of those. She's on trend. She's doing pumping steroids." How often does that happen? For you?
In person, never. It's
Right.
always on the internet. It's always the internet trolls that have those things to say. And it used to bother me a lot. It used to offend me, or I'd feel like some type of way about it. And now I just laugh and I take it as a compliment and a testament to my hard work. I know weightlifters come in all shapes and sizes. I know most are not as lean as I am. And I had to actually work to like get close to the 64. I was hovering around 60, 59, 60, closer to that weight class when I first started and when I first moved to Texas. So I've worked really hard to like gain size, and I still managed to stay pretty lean. But I brush it off now. It doesn't really bother me anymore. I think it's amusing. And like I said, it's a testament to the work that I've put in to look the way that I do, perform the way that I do. And it's unfortunate that people make those assumptions with no additional information about my background, how many years I've been doing this, because this didn't just happen overnight. Like as we talked about earlier, my background, I've been doing gymnastics since I was 3, basically strength training since I was this big. And now all these years, decades later, yeah, that is realistic to gain that much muscle over a period of decades. It didn't just happen in a month or a year. And so it's always people who don't follow me, who have no idea anything about me, and they just make assumptions based on one post that they see or whatever, and they feel small about themselves. So that's usually that. And I got drug tested at the AO finals, and that was really cool to like get selected for drug testing. I felt like I had made it in my career and be like, yeah, now I'm going to stick it to you and prove that I have no performance enhancing drugs. And of course it came back clean, and I got to share that. So that was fun, but it is what it is.
Some people are a little nervous there, and that you're probably, volunteering. "Hey, I'm bring it on. I'm happy to do it."
I was so happy.
Right. Yeah, they grow a lot of courage and muscles, behind the cloak of social media or being online. So, a couple things that are pretty obvious. It was simple to see that you're able to progress because, one, you've been lifting your whole life, whether it's your body weight or in the weight room. You add in the ulcerative colitis, so now you're eating well or better, and you're recovering more. So you combine constantly training, building incrementally, and then improving your food and recovery incrementally, and then you go from age 3 to 34 or 33. So 3 decades of doing that, yes, you're going to have a healthy specimen of a human being. That's what it looks like, right?
Exactly.
Also, when you're doing well, that's when the haters and the criticism starts coming out. No one's really criticizing the people that can't do much at all. So
Right.
it's really, it's a good sign that you kind of have your shit going in the right direction, because some of the haters are coming out. So that's all, honestly, not fun, but really good things.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, you're welcome. The ever get competitive with Joel and say, "Hey, let's go out there and see who has a bigger total today," or anything like that?
He actually doesn't really do much weightlifting. He's dabbled. He's come to training with me a couple times, and he'll throw the barbell around. He's very very adaptable and very versatile when it comes to his strengths. He has to be for the military. So he's very strong. It's like with the more of the power lifts, especially deadlifts. He
Sure.
weighs about 175 pounds and can pull, I think, 550 or something. But then he can go run a 3 mile in, I don't know, 19, 20 minutes. So, because he has to for the military. So, and then crank out 25 pull-ups. So he can do all that type of stuff. And he's got more of a balance of strength and endurance. I'm all strength, no endurance. But when it comes to weightlifting, his proportions are definitely not ideal for weightlifting. And he's also had some injuries, combat injuries. He got blown up by an IED. So he had a spine issue, and he had a whole left side problem with his nerves and all this stuff a couple of years ago. So in the rehab process, he kind of backed off of the barbell a little bit and had to do just unilateral work and just rehab for a while. So he tries to not play it safe, but just be mindful, but be
Gotcha.
smart about it. No ego lifting.
No ego lifting.
Yeah.
That's tough for the fellas sometimes.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the, the wins that you experience when you're working with those that come back with the TBIs, or you said post 9/11. There's all sorts of different kinds of, hurdles and obstacles that people face physically, mentally, and then both. Talk about how that resilience, that perseverance, that is, is one of the components that you're facilitating and growing with those folks. Because it's a human trait that if you can have that constant resilience, our core value that mimics that is the word sisu. So when you work with those folks, talk about how some of the things that you do to help build that, and some of the wins you guys have been experiencing in that endeavor.
Yeah, that's a topic I love to talk about, and it's been one of the most impactful things I've done in my career. So I joined the program. The place is called Resiliency Brain Health. They're a functional neurology clinic, meaning they don't just throw medication and pills at problems, which is most of what the VA does to the veterans after they get out, is just medicate them. And instead, they take a functional approach to addressing root cause. Let's figure out why you're experiencing these symptoms, and let's address the root cause, not just try to mitigate the symptoms, but actually address the reason they're happening and fix it. So they go through a series of brain treatments and all different types of therapies and infusions and rewiring of neural pathways and all this type of stuff. It's pretty incredible what they're doing with the neurologists. And I became a part of the program in December of 2022 when shortly after Joel went through the program as well. And because I think everyone's pretty clear now that there's been a lot more research done on brain injury, that when you can combine the brain and the body and address both, that the outcomes short and long term are going to be much better versus when you just focus on the brain or just focus on the body. And so my job there was to develop a curriculum that helps them do that and really enhances the work that the docs are doing with them in terms of the brain, and then pair it with movement, physical movement. Many of these veterans, and now they're also treating first responders who have been injured too, many of them have had a lot of physical injuries in addition to their brain injury. So they have a lot of pain. Pain is just their norm. And it's sometimes mind-blowing to them when I explain to them that pain is not normal. Like, that's their normal. They don't know a life without pain, and they haven't for years, if not decades, for some of them. So teaching them how they can start to move again, and the therapies that the docs do on their brains actually does help them get out of pain by treating inflammation. And I can address the movement dysfunctions and imbalances and things like that they've been dealing with for all these years. And then core strength, core stability. We do a lot of mobility. We do foam rolling. We do breath work. We do some loaded movement towards the end. I don't have a ton of time with them. They're only there for 2 weeks, and I get 5 days with them for 2 hours a piece. So it's not a lot of time, but I try to give them as many tools as I can and remind them that these 2 weeks that we have together is just the beginning. And the work really continues, and the impact is made when they continue doing the work afterwards, when they go back home. So it's very full body focus, functional movement, mobility, stability, balance, coordination, getting the right side and the left side to talk to each other again after sometimes not doing so for a while because of the brain injury, depending on where their brain was impacted. So every case is a little bit different, but it's very rewarding to see how much progress they can make in 2 weeks when they get the right treatment. And the treatment protocols that the docs use on their brains are very individualized, depending on what their symptoms are, what parts of their brain were were affected by the injuries, and they have assessments to be able to identify those things. So it's pretty cool. And then, I mean, some of them have not slept. Like, they haven't had a full night of restful sleep in years, if not decades. And so when we can get them sleeping, I mean, we know from being athletes what that can do after one night or 2 nights or a week, but imagine years of just not getting into REM sleep at all, or being woken up by pain, or having nightmares that you're being woken up from every single night, like all of those things. And then compound that on top of all the other things that they have going on and trying to live a normal life and function in society. So, I mean, it's really been an eye-opening experience for me to see what all that, the trauma, the war trauma, and the experiences and the physical pain and the mental struggles and all these things just layered on top of each other, and doing that for years and years and years and not knowing any other way. And so they come to us, a lot of them, when they're at their rock bottom, and we can help them make that next step that they need to really see and feel hope again, that they have a reason to live, that they have the possibility to heal and go back to normal society. And we've had people who, you know, the pistol was in the mouth and they decided not to pull the trigger, and then they came to us. And not every case is that severe, but we've had those. And then I worked with a guy in December, right before Christmas, and he was in so much physical pain. He said he'd had a headache since he was 27. He was in his early 40s now. He didn't know life without a headache. And he had so much physical pain. He couldn't lift. He couldn't do any of the things he used to love to do. He has a 4-year-old daughter. He couldn't get on the ground and play with her. We treated him. He went home, had Christmas, and bawled, and just reached out to all of us and said, that was the best Christmas I've ever had. I could get on the ground and play with my daughter, and I didn't have any pain. And it's unbelievable, truly, what we are able to accomplish with all the different types of therapies. And yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for your service. That's amazing. And with the veteran and active duty military, the suicide rate is like the low 20s, like a day. And so you're no stranger to that, because you'll see that if people they're close sometimes. I like a lot of rules of thumb or equations, and with Jocko's, one of his is discipline equals freedom, but another one is exercise equals medicine. And so when people are just always prescribing this or that as a way of handling issues, and they can actually get back to movement and all the benefits from that, compounded with now they can sleep through the night more often, not always, right? But more often, not being plagued by nightmares or pain. That's life changing. That's life changing, which then changes that 4-year-old girl, because it's a whole different dynamic and relationship, and she grows up differently. So the ripple effect is enormous when you compound that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we had one of our other guests on. He's actually Dr. Riley. He's a PhD in neurology. So he's here locally in Indianapolis. He's a thrower. So 2-time All-American hammer thrower, and he does a lot of Highland Games.
Nice.
And so his story is amazing. But it's still so new what the brain and the spine is capable of doing and fixing itself. How about the confidence, though, that they have in 2 weeks, I can go home and do this. I can play. Like, that confidence is huge, which then empowers them to maybe try a little more at something. So all that just rolls in together, and it's so impactful. I really can't even put into words. That's great. That's great.
Thanks. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, especially because these people, I'm working with them when they're at their lowest for the most part. And they know themselves when they were at their highest, at their peak. Many special operators, or no matter what, whether they were conventional military or special operations, like, they all served the country, and they were at one point in time, some just a year ago, some 20 years ago. We have all ages that come through the clinic, but they were all at one point at their peak performance, fitness, mental stamina, physical stamina, and it's impossible for them to not know and think about that. And so it becomes very, in many ways, depressing and frustrating for them to know where they once were, where they are now. And then if we can just move the needle a little bit on giving them hope, not to say that they're going to get back to where they were when they were 20, but if they can at least have some semblance of a normal life and pursue the things that they want to do in their careers, with their families, with their hobbies, and be pain-free and have that vitality again, it's it's priceless.
How do you change that focus? Tony Robbins will say, where your focus goes, your energy flows. So when they're focused on, I can't do this, I could have done this, I'm missing an arm now, or I have other injuries and I can't do these things, right? So they're wishing they had this. How do you change their focus onto the new target and have them, how do they evolve and become comfortable or even excited with that new target? Because once they're focusing on the new target, then they're going to be energized and have more energy in a more positive direction versus the constant regret and wishing. How do you change that focus for them?
I have to just remind them, I guess it's a perspective shift. That many of them are now in their 40s, 50s. And so I guess in a way they've come to terms with they're not going to be who they were when they're 20, but that doesn't mean that all hope is lost or that they're just downhill for the rest of their lives now. I think in some ways they have come to terms with that when they sign up to come to the treatment program and go through the 2-week program. But it's just giving them a new goal to focus on, a new why, new purpose. And many of them have things that they want to do. They just haven't been able to because of all these factors that are limiting them. And so just getting them moving again and making them decrease their pain levels, increase their enjoyment of life, and just getting out, just shifting their perspective a little bit, I think is this first step. And just helping them feel better in their body and in their brain. And then when they leave, they're ready to go tackle whatever it is that they want to do. And they're in a much better headspace about it.
I'm sure you could also identify, not that you've been injured like that, but you had a setback with the immune disorder, but even without that, being on the platform is a lonely sport. You're not passing the ball to someone else. You're not receiving the ball. You're not, even in gymnastics, there's a whole team, right? You might have an Olympic lifting team, but you're coming out of Texas out of a garage of 70-year-olds, right? They're not they're not in the same weight class or even the same sex as you. So there's got to be some times when you found yourself in your own head about hitting this lift or what this lift means or advancing. Talk about how those times in developing yourself as an Olympic lifting athlete, and how that translates to what they're going through.
Yeah, it is. Like you said, it is a lonely sport, and it's even lonelier given my training circumstances, because sometimes I'll go to these meets and there's other teams in Texas that have 20, 30, 40 lifters, and they're always training together. They're competing together. There's multiple lifters from a weight class. I'm the only female on my quote unquote team. I don't even know if you can call it a team. And I'm the only one that's in the open. Everybody else is masters. And so it can be lonely. And so I've had times where, especially moving to a new state and coming here and doing a solo sport, knowing very few people here. And I did, after my first meet, I actually tried CrossFit. I told my coach, like, give me a week. I need to take a break and see if this is what I really want. And I went to a CrossFit gym, and because I thought that would be a better way to meet more like-minded people my age, have a little bit more social time in conjunction with my fitness time. And I wasn't sure if I was going to really take Olympic lifting seriously or not. And I tried one CrossFit gym that was the closest one to my house. And I think there were 3 people that showed up all 3 days that I went. It was a very small class. Wasn't like the vibe I was looking for. And I said, all right, I guess I'm going back to weightlifting. And then that was it. So I did question my decision to really take it that seriously, or even train in this group that I'm with, or should I try to find another team? But it's pretty close to my house, and so it made more sense from like a time standpoint. And yeah, as far as the mindset goes, I think every athlete has those times when we question our ability to lift the weight on the platform. What are we doing? What is it for? Is this really what I want? And I've had a few points throughout my journey that I've had those moments, and I try not to make emotional decisions, try to be logical about things. And so I know it's whenever I'm in an emotional period, that's not the best time to make a decision, whether good emotions, bad emotions, it's just not the right time to make a significant decision like that. So sometimes it's just the accumulation of stress from all the things going on in my life, or I haven't slept well, or any number of things that could contribute to my feeling the way that I'm feeling. And I've just come to a place where, with weightlifting specifically, like, I'll know when it's time to hang it up, when I'm either hopefully not career-ending injury, but I want to keep my body as healthy as possible for as long as possible. I want to keep progressing as long as I can, and I want to make sure I'm enjoying it. And so if any of those factors are not met, then I'll reconsider. But for right now, it's just sometimes we get stuck in those ruts. We got to push through, and then we come out the other side and realize we do love it after all, and it's for a reason.
When you're at the
What are
open, go ahead, Lucas.
what are some of your thoughts? What goes through your mind when you're going through a tough training cycle and you're having a rough day training? Like how do you think through that, and what's your process of knowing that it's just maybe a bad training session or a bad lift or not a bad career, but just a bad day, you know?
Totally.
Can you talk a little bit about how you go through your mind with that?
Absolutely. And I'm much better now than I was even 6 months or a year ago. I think that's part of the athlete's journey. Is mindset is so much of the journey. And a lot of in the Navy SEAL community, the military community, talk a lot about like micro goals, right? Focus on the next step. And if the getting through this training session, thinking about getting from now till 2 hours from now is too much, think about the next set. And if that's too much, think about the next rep. It's truly just getting like the tiniest little step. You chunk it down to as small as you need to. And there are days when I have to do that for truly every single rep or every single set. It's just like one foot in front of the other, push through. This too shall pass. This training session will end. I'll be able to go to sleep tonight, wake up tomorrow, new day. And it's just a lot of mindset work. And some days are not every day is going to be a PR. And, even not every meet, I'm at that point now where I'm not continuing to linearly progress each meet. And when I was starting in competition, I was adding kilos every meet, and then I got close to that 200, and it started to fluctuate a little bit, and that was really hard for me because I had this expectation I would always continue to increase, and then I had to reset that mindset, because that's clearly not the case. If we were always going to progress linearly, then what would be the point, right? We got to work for those kilos. So I think that's been a big one too. Is just micro goals, reframing, and discipline.
You talk about doing the cold therapy and the breath work. That's going to help in those sessions, and when you're competing, at the open, all these feelings are coming through. It's you're just thinking about your next lift. It might be, hey, the next number is submitted by your coach. Now your next task is just simply sit down, right? You just sit down here and find a focal point, and then you work on your breathing. And you probably just, I tell my athletes, it's like whether you're lining up a putt or a free throw, it's process, process, process. You can ask yourself, what is this next moment not? It's not me having 20 years of pain in my head and I can't play with my 4-year-old daughter. It's not that, right? It's not me losing my husband while he's deployed. It is this, and it's important to me, which is great. Great. So now asking yourself what it is not helps you kind of calm down. Use your breathing to further change your body to help it calm down even further. Then you got 1 or 2 cues, right? Lats tight, drive through the floor, or whatever, right? If you can just then simplify it down to those micro goals like you talked about, once you calmed yourself, that's going to make that's going to help make a big difference with that platform. It's execute or don't. You catch the ball in the end zone for the touchdown, or you drop the ball in the end zone for the touchdown, right? So, and you only get 3 attempts each. Who's a lifter historically or currently that you're like, man, I like watching this person? And for me, it's that Matthias from Germany from years ago who hit that clean because his wife had just died in a car wreck, right, a year prior. So he hit that 10 kilo PR in the clean to win by 1 kilo to bring home the goal that he promised his wife. So who's an older lifter or a current lifter you kind of follow and like, oh man, that person's badass. I want to watch him or her lift.
That's a good question. I haven't honestly been following the sport of weightlifting at an international level for very long, or that much even now. I didn't even know how the qualifications worked. So I've been watching the Final Attempt documentary. I finally caught up to, are you familiar with that? Following the American women?
Yeah.
So I'm just, go ahead.
No CJ Cummings or Robles, right? The super heavyweight for weightlifting. There's
Yeah.
been
So the
a
final attempt is just the documentary on the women because it's so competitive, and I'm sure the men is too. I don't really know that much. I mostly follow the women, but any and all of them that are just trying to make Paris 2024 with these insane, insanely competitive weight classes and fewer of them than before, and all the things working against them, and they couldn't go to the Pan Ams because it was in Venezuela, so they're not the Europeans, and just all these things. It's just like an uphill battle and crazy, crazy tough to qualify for Paris. So I'm just really enjoying watching all the women and fight for the I think 3 spots that they get to have or something like that.
that's it. For each weight class, there's inviting 10 from
Yeah,
across the world, and they have to qualify within the next number of months. And it's that, it's just we're inviting 10. Not
yeah,
we're definitely getting one or two from the U.S. or well, they're probably getting plenty from Colombia and China. Those countries are always sending amazing weightlifters.
yeah. I don't
With
really have a
with
favorite though.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, the things that have been critical I asked you about here about working with teammates. I had a question about that. Most of your teammates are all old guys, right? Even older than me at 49, right?
Oh yeah,
They'll say, if you want to see what your future is, show me your 5 people you hang out with the most. So if you're pushing to compete, are you able to have the intensity level that's required to get you to improve in training so you can then improve when it counts? That's got to be kind of hard, right? If you're the only one that's really competing.
I guess part of it's just being intrinsically motivated. Like it's the
Sure.
least motivating environment you could probably ever train in because my coach being 76, he's hard of hearing. We can't have music on because otherwise he can't hear. So it's a 2-car garage and it's myself and then the one other guy who competes pretty regularly and at a high level. He's 60, so he's competing masters, but he's like masters worlds level and he's winning and all that stuff. So he's pretty legit and he's 60, but he acts like he's 25. So we get along well. And so it's basically the two of us, and then Richard, my coach, he doesn't train. He's just basically sitting on his chair with saying as few words as possible. And then Tom, who's 74, I think, and Tom has competed in 51 or 52 consecutive Texas state championships. So he's been competing for 5 decades, and he still
Wow.
competes, and he still works. He's he's all climbing on roofs and doing I think he's an engineer, some structural engineer. There we go. So he's like he'll work till the day he dies. But so they're very unique individuals, and I learn a lot from just listening to them talk. But it's definitely not your intense training environment. But like I said before, being intrinsically motivated and just I have my program, I know what I have to do, I know what numbers my coach wants me to hit that day, and I just execute. And sometimes when I train by myself, because I'll train with him with the group 3 days a week, and then usually 1 or 2 other days I'm training on my own, either at home or somewhere else. And so on those days, that's when I'll throw the music on or get crazy with it and have a little bit more upbeat training session. But I've learned to not rely on music and not rely on any external factors to keep me wanting to show up and work hard. It's just I have to do it no matter what. So I think there's some benefits to it too.
Always being dependent on some external stimulus for you to move forward, not always going to be there. And then, like anything else, you develop a tolerance
For
where,
sure.
yeah, I want music on. All right, no, it has to be one of these 3 songs has to be on, and it has to be this
Yep.
loud, right? I can't listen to Kid Rock's Baba Daba all the time when I'm trying to squat. But sometimes just training in your own head after a while becomes a better place to be because you're not thinking about something else. You're just able to concentrate and focus.
Yeah, I agree. And I didn't realize how powerful that going through that process would be, but I feel good knowing that I can show up in the worst conditions and still throw down whatever I need to do. And I train in the afternoon, and I'm super sensitive to caffeine. Like I don't drink caffeine past 11 a.m. usually because I will not sleep at night, and I need my sleep. I'm obsessive about my sleep quality and quantity, especially now. So I don't even drink caffeine before my workouts. It's truly just grit.
Dang. So your room's cold at night and there's no ambient light. You're not watching anything on your screen before you go to bed. You're checking all the boxes, right?
All the boxes, and then
All the
some.
boxes, and then some, right? I saw here on the nutrition piece. This is going to be huge. Obviously, decreasing processed food. That's an obvious one, but avoiding alcohol too. And then choosing high quality sources and plenty of protein. How much protein just Because people don't understand, like, how much protein you take in a day, roughly.
I don't track anymore. I do get that question a lot. I haven't tracked in a long time. I feel like I'm so in tune with what my body needs, and I stay pretty consistent with my body weight. So I just more or less eat intuitively, but I eat, if I had to guess, probably at least a gram per pound,
Yeah.
if not more.
You know, once you track for X number of months, you know what portions look like,
Yeah.
and then the real regimented athletes they don't give a shit about eating the same breakfast 5 days in a row and the next 5 days having a different variation of the same breakfast. So once they know what those same breakfasts look like, they know,
Yeah.
well, when I have this, I'm going to have about, 50 grams of protein and 30 carbs and, 10 fat. And so I'm in that range all the time. You do that for X number of years. You have
Yeah,
a good sense for it.
for sure.
Cold plunging in the morning and sauna in the evening. That's the sauna part is part I don't really have much experience in it. I have the cold plunge some, and over 2 years into it, I still don't love it.
Yeah.
But
No,
it's still a thing. Talk to me about the sauna in the evening. You do that every day, every other day, every once in a while. How's that help? How do you find that's helping you?
I do it, I'd say 5 days a week,
Hmm.
probably. I have a sauna in my garage, so it's convenient. And I actually have come to really enjoy it as a wind down part of my nighttime routine. So I think everyone's been on board with the morning routine for a long time. I
Sure.
think the nighttime routine is equally, if not more important. And I've been doing a lot of reading and listening to podcasts about sleep and recovery. And my friend Todd, he talks about this on a podcast, and it made so much sense. So we think about awake asleep as like this binary thing. We're either awake or we're asleep. And we do whatever we're going to do throughout our day, and then we get in bed and we think we're just going to like snap our fingers and turn it off. But what happens during that 60 minutes prior to getting into bed will determine how quickly we get to sleep and how deeply we do sleep, especially for that first part of the night. And so if we're exposing ourselves to bright lights, exciting TV shows or social media scrolling or any of those things, then we're delaying that melatonin release, and we're not creating that environment and that preparation for the mind and body to get into that restful state. And so for me, the sauna is kind of that stimulus that starts my 60-minute prep for bedtime. And as soon as I am in the sauna, or as I'm getting ready to go into the sauna, the lights in my house go off. I put candles on or really dim red lights, and I don't go on my email or social media or anything after I'm out of the sauna. I get out of the sauna, I rinse off, brush my teeth, read a book, and go to bed. And so it's just really that cascading of getting my brain and body prepared for sleep by exposing myself to just darkness, not having bright lights, not reading anything stimulating or watching anything. And then I get in bed and I'm out in less than 5 minutes. And that used to not be the case. So I found it really does help with that preparation for bedtime. In addition, because when we go, like with the cold, right? When after you get out of the cold, your body heats back up. So your body temperature will rise. And it's the opposite with the sauna. So when you go in the sauna, you heat your body up. But then for the 30 minutes after, your body is going to cool down and it's going to experience that drop in temperature. And we need that about 1 degree drop in temperature to actually fall asleep. So getting to that drop in temperature by way of the sauna can actually happen faster. So I think that for those kind of two reasons, it's really helped me with my sleep quality and wind down routine before sleep.
Yeah, because the brain likes cold a little bit. So do you like what we do? I'll have the window open in the bedroom in the winter, so it gets cold in there. But I got plenty of blankets and all. But we I seem to always sleep better. So does Jen, where it's super cold in the bedroom, and it helps keep. I don't know. You just kind of tuck in and you're good. So
Yep.
I don't have a sauna at my house. I guess I'll just have to turn the shower on real hot and sit there in the bathroom for a minute.
Yeah. Hot bath is great. Any kind of heat exposure at night is good.
Man, I'm a big boy. I don't like the heat so much, but I get that. And the other thing about a couple things there, people talk about like you said, the morning routine being important. Well, the evening routine is what starts the whole morning shot.
Agreed.
When people
Yep.
tell me I can't train at 6 because I can't get up, I said you can get up. You just can't. You don't go to bed early enough.
Right.
It's that step beforehand that impacts it. They don't look at the root cause. So getting that evening set up, man, you just set up and you're good to go the next morning. The other thing, like you listed 4, 5, 6 things that people can do to improve their sleep with the light and the reading. in the process, even the candles. The, the main thing though is when you add some kind of deviation to your routine, say it's you're going to bed a little bit earlier, you want to see how your body, adjusts to that and then add another one. Don't just do six
Yes.
things at once because you don't know which of those uh, factors are the one that's really impacting you, because not everyone's going to act like, Rebecca here. They're going to think, well, I don't like to smell candles at night. I don't want to be worried about the house burning down. So that's going to add a stress. I'm definitely not doing that shit. But getting things cold, I can get behind that and I like it. So I'll add that. The important thing is that you try something out and see how you respond to it, and then decide if you want to add it or keep it or get rid of it.
Absolutely.
I'm guessing you're a pretty regimented person from sun up to sundown on a lot of things.
Yep.
Type A.
Yep. What was your first
I
clue?
can, well, there's been a lot of clues all along the way,
Yeah.
but those that really have big impact and do big things, it's not because they're wasting time doing little things. They're always trying to solve bigger and bigger problems.
Yep. And I think the fewer decisions that you have to make, the better decisions you can make, and the more when you have to make those big decisions, because we get decision fatigue, right? And so if
Yes.
we're disciplined about the things that are simple, not easy, but the morning routine, the evening routine, the sleep, the nutrition, like just take the guesswork out of the equation for those things so you can leave your mental capacity for the bigger, more important things that you have to do throughout the day. I think that's really a big overlooked factor for a lot of people too.
Yeah, you can automate your first 60, 90, 120 minutes of the day. I get up at this time, take care of this stuff. Here's my morning routine. You might do some meditation, you might read the Bible, whatever. But hey, I'm training in the morning, so I'm getting this done. Here's when I eat. So if you can automate 90 minutes, well, you don't start really thinking until after that point. So if you're up at 5:30, you don't start really thinking until 7. And
Yep.
if you have the whole evening, like you said, structured and lined up, well, the last 2 hours of the day is all structured. So I know I'm doing this, this, and this. Well, now all I have to do is think from 7 in the morning till then. So then you can be a little bit more aggressive or impactful or even just a little smarter because, at 49, I forget shit. So if I can just limit and minimize when I actually have to be on, I could probably have a better shot.
Yep.
Anything else or words of wisdom that you want listeners to know about you and what's going on, or any tips or tricks that you say, man, what kills me when people say, hey, wait, man, what's the one thing that I need to know? And the real answer is there is no fucking one thing. There's about 101 things for all 6 areas.
Yes.
But
Thank you so much.
I just love how Tim Grover just goes ape shit on people when they say, what's the one thing? And he just starts killing people for it, And I'm like, yeah, there's not one thing. We just listed 100 in one day. So shit, whoever thinks it's one thing is just oversimplifying. They're not that, they're going nowhere.
Yeah.
But if you have some priorities, or hey, people are going through a tough time, think about these one or two things. Some things that you would say, hey, if you can leave that impact and that ripple on some folks, what would that be?
I think this one's one that we just talked about it, but it was truly life changing for me was when I started to prioritize sleep. And I think a lot of people be like, well, duh, sleep's important. But I don't think people realize how important. And everything changed for me when I prioritized my sleep above almost everything else. And I was not ever in the past I had insomnia and it was bad sleeper in college, but even like the last 5 years, I've not been a terrible sleeper, but I would get like 7 hours a night. 7.5 would be a good night. When I started getting 8 to 9, my whole life changed. I haven't had a bad day. Not to say I haven't had stress, but I feel so much more capable of facing those stressors and more resilient to the things that do come my way. I have better decision-making abilities. I have more emotional regulation. I obviously recover better from my workouts. My metabolism is faster. My mood is just way more consistent versus the ups and downs. And people don't realize how much sleep does contribute to overall wellness, health, performance, everything. And I'm reading a book about it right now and I'm learning why that is. And it's the thing that no one's talking about. Very few people are talking about, but it will positively impact everybody's life if we prioritize sleep more. And I think that is just a cascade of more good things that happen, more gains are made, more better days are had. Just everything is better when you are well rested and you have a clear mind and you can attack whatever is on your plate that day and feel good about it while you're doing it. So that was a huge one, and it's really only been like 3 months since I started really getting into the sleep, the regimented evening routine as much as the morning routine, and getting as much sleep as my body needs, which again, I know working with first responders and military members, I know is not always possible, but anything we can do to get better quality sleep is going to be hugely impactful. So that's definitely one. I think what you said before, what we talked about with like movement as medicine, not to say movement replaces medicine. If you have a need for medication, obviously do follow what your physician says. Always have to put that disclaimer out there. But movement can make people feel so much better when you go from sedentary to starting to move, or when you push yourself in the gym, or when you embrace strength training. I think that's a big one. You know, maybe more women than men are afraid to lift heavy weights or lift weights at all. But I think that was from the beginning of my journey, that's been one of the most powerful and impactful things that I've done and been able to help others do, is realize how incredible it is to be a strong, physically and mentally strong person, and how much more we can achieve in life being a strong, capable individual. So I think physical, mental strength, sleep, mindset, I think it's all related. So like you said, there's not just one thing, but I think those things and can be really, really powerful for anybody and everybody.
Man, you said it, sister. That's absolutely right. And I do some things great on sleep, but definitely not enough. And I feel the difference. Someone likened it to drinking a little bit, in that if you have those first 1, 2, 3 drinks, you feel kind of a buzz, right? And then 4, 5, 6, 7, you kind of just in that haze where you feel, I'm probably okay. I don't really feeling a buzz anymore, but I'm feeling kind of okay. And you don't realize you're actually getting drunker and you're deteriorating. You're just feeling, I'm just kind of okay. Well, when you're sleep deprived for one day, you can be fine that one day. That second day, you're like, oh man, this is bad. I'm in a bad spot. That third day, like, this sucks. But that fourth, fifth day in a row of only 6.5 hours of sleep, you're like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. So that becomes like your new normal of that. It's like that guy who's had headaches for 20 years. Yeah, I'm okay. And you don't realize how your cortisol is in the shitter. And that's why you're gaining weight, or you're a guy and your testosterone's through the floor, and you're not able to concentrate and execute because your brain is hurting, right?
Yep.
Your body is hurting. So that is, of the last 20 guys that we've had, guys and gals that we talked to on here, I don't think anyone has said, it's not sleep. It's the number one steroid is sleep. Right. So if you can smash that, you got a good shot the next day. Right.
100%. And it's truly remarkable. And the book I'm reading now is called Why We Sleep. And I've learned so much. I'm like halfway through it, but my mind is just blown by, it's truly the ultimate performance enhancing drug. And people have no idea. And it's like a badge of honor to not sleep. And like, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead, or if you're sleeping, you're not working, but the productivity that is lost the next day by not sleeping, it just doesn't check out. Like, there's no reason, unless, there's nothing good that comes from being sleep deprived. And so many good things that come from being well rested, physically and mentally.
Reminds me of the time I spent after I graduated working out in Maryland. I quite literally slept 3 hours a night for 8 months. Then when I left Maryland, I came home, my hair was falling out. I could grab chunks of my hair and it was literally falling out. And I just remember being so sick looking. Yep. So sick and just and it takes, I don't think people realize when you don't sleep regularly, it kind of takes a while to recover from that. With you getting your hormones back in, like, it affects your hormones, and it takes a little while to get back in balance. And it took 5 months at least to be able to recover from that and get good sleep, and for my body to start functioning right. And just when you feel it, it's a different animal.
100%. And people always want to know, like, what's the hack? What's the shortcut I could take? What diet do I need to follow? What workout plan? I'm like, no, forget all that. Just start sleeping more and then come talk to me. Because anything else you're trying to do, if you're not sleeping enough, consistently you're sleep deprived, reaching whatever goal you have is going to be exponentially more difficult. So let's start there.
All my kids need to really listen to this because whenever I get my first period class, they're always tired. They're always it's that first period's always tough to get them moving a little bit. You got to throw in a little extra warm up or something in for them just because they're not sleeping. They're not taking that. They're waking up 30 minutes before they got to go to school, and then boom, they come into class, and it's the first period's weight training. So it's I've been up for 3 hours before I even get to school. So it's different for me, and I tell that to them as well because our school class starts at 8 a.m. and they're probably waking up at 7:25, 7:30. Some of them probably 7:45, just strolling in pajamas still.
Yeah.
They got their workout shoes on, but they still got their pajamas on, and it's you're not prepared for this, and no wonder you're tired. No wonder you don't want to work out.
Yeah.
It's
Well, if you read, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
If you read Why We Sleep, he talks about the circadian rhythm throughout the lifespan, and it's actually disadvantageous for kids to start school when they do, in the United States at least, because they have a later shift in circadian rhythm during that period of their life where their sleep time they prefer later, and then they want to sleep later. So they stay up late, but then because of the school start time, we cut that early. They cut that last bit of the sleep cycle off, which is when a lot of good, important things happen. And then they're so tired because their bodies would prefer that they are sleeping during the time that they're showing up for their first period. And so we're really putting them at a disadvantage by starting school at 8 or even 7 for 0 period.
So you'd even say that kids staying up later at a younger age is kind of a natural thing?
Yep, and like the later adolescence that's when we shift later, and then as adults, then we go back to the earlier. It's really interesting. He does a phenomenal job laying it all out in the book, and obviously, like babies and infants, they need tons and tons of sleep, like 20 hours a day. Yeah. But then as kids, things start to change, and then in adolescence it changes again, and then in adulthood it changes again.
I had no idea. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. That's great to know.
Yeah.
I remember I can't remember where I heard it from. It was a while back, but it was basically a little clip in a podcast. These guys talking about this guy's kids are athletes, and on the weekends he lets his kids sleep in. He always lets his kids sleep in, and the other guy was kind of like, why would you you got to get them up, used to getting up, and it just kind of like, I feel like that makes a lot more sense to allow kids to have that weekend and to sleep in and to recover, especially if they're busy especially if they're high school athletes and they're still working out and they're going to school. And then that whole conversation get into, the whole, AAU and all their travel teams and all this and how little sleep they're getting on the weekends and how busy they are. That's a whole nother can of worms that we've talked about quite extensively on here. So
yeah, you're spot on, and parents will shame the kids sometimes for sleeping in. Yeah. It's like, oh, you're so lazy, you're sleeping till 10, but there's a reason, because that's when they prefer to be asleep, and that last sleep cycle of the night, the last like 90-minute cycle before waking up in the morning, that's when there's so many important things for the brain development happen, and we're just chopping it off, and you can't make it up, right? You do that 5 nights a week. What does that do long-term development to a kid? Like, it's really detrimental. So you're totally spot on there.
I had no idea that's how the sleep cycle changes like that for high school kids. It makes a lot of sense though. Because usually right around 10 o'clock is when the better classes start coming in, the more, the energetic teams and stuff like that. That makes a lot of sense. It's cool.
There's biological reasons for that.
Perfect.
What about the self-imposed kids that are in high school and they're like, those guys, they're chasing girls at night and the girls are chasing the guys at night. So that on the weekends, they're up until 3, 4 a.m. screwing around or on their phones, talking back and forth. So this all makes a lot of sense, assuming they're not shooting themselves in the foot by self-imposing these super late hours of being up late. Because I know it's like being up late in college and high school because I was doing stupid shit, right? But it's also, you sleep until 10 and you want 10 hours. right? It's not you sleep until 10 to get 6,
Right.
right?
Yeah. That the other end of that is not going to bed at 3. It's like they should around 10, 11, maybe 12 to sleep
Right.
full 8 to 10 hours, but it's
Right.
not. Yeah. There's two ends of the
That's
bookends,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Both.
Well, along this last piece, I want to just pick a little fight for you. So I totally agree that you're right. The sleep is going to be critical, right? You're also a Jonko Fuel athlete, and that dude is big time. When I go to bed whenever I want, 10, 10, 30, 11 o'clock, and I'm up at 4:34 every day, I only need, 5.5, 6 hours of sleep. So you ever get into it with him yet about this topic? Because if that happens, make sure it's recorded. I want to hear about it and see about it. So how's that going to go there, you think? That's going to be a tough one. He's going to be a little stubborn sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know
So
him from Adam. All I know is from what I see, but I gotta believe that you're armed with that data and he's armed with I don't fucking care. I'm just what I'm doing, right? So
yeah. So a couple points there. No, I've never talked to him directly about it. I'm going to be seeing him in 2 weeks at the Arnold, so maybe we'll rap about it. I don't know. But two, I don't. People who are chronically sleep deprived, like you said before, they have a new normal. Like they don't realize that they're functioning at lesser capacity than what they could be if they were fully rested. And so the human brain cannot identify that it's sleep deprived. So even when you
you
push
don't
through,
know.
you think you're fine, you don't know.
You don't know.
And so
That's right.
he might just be so used to it and be so disciplined that he can still achieve all the things that he does and do all the businesses and do all the speaking and writing and podcasting and I would just be mind blown to imagine what he would be if he did sleep 8 hours. Obviously he would be working fewer hours, but he'd run the world. Like
Mm,
with what he does with sleeping 5 or 6 hours a night and what he's been able to achieve, I can't even imagine if he were sleeping 7 or 8 hours a night. The other
right.
thing, and he talks, go ahead.
Write it down, Lucas. She just said that, hey, Jocko doesn't even know his brain's fucked up, right? Because he's so sleep deprived. He
He
doesn't even
said,
know. He doesn't even know he's fucked up right now. That's okay.
but in the book, in While We Sleep, he mentioned because a lot of people think like, oh, I'm good. I don't need more than 6 hours. Well, he talks about that, and there is a gene. I don't remember the name of the gene, but there is a gene that they've identified, and it is in a tiny, tiny, minuscule fraction of a percentage of the population in the world. So much so that you are more likely to get struck by lightning than have this gene, and if you round it to the nearest whole number, it's 0. That's how many people in the world have the gene. That they can sleep 6 hours and it does not actually affect them. And they don't know why. They haven't been able to
Sure.
identify why, but there is a very small percentage. So the chances, if you're listening to this and you think you're one of those people, well, you're probably not. But there is a chance that Jocko is one of those people. I don't know. I don't know if he has the gene or if he's ever been tested. I doubt it. But he could be. I don't know.
That's straight out of Dumb and Dumber when he asks her, "What are the chances you and I end up together?" And she's like, "1 out of 100," and the girl lays like more like 1 out of 1,000,000, right? So that's what that means right there. Yeah, there's a chance, but there's really no way in hell. I
Yeah.
see. I already asked you, what you like to listen to, and said a lot of times nothing. But on a bucket list adventure for you and Joel to go somewhere you haven't been yet, where would that be?
We have talked about going to Japan. I really would love to go to Japan. Food, culture, there's a lot of really interesting history there. There's a lot of, I think the most centenarians, people that live to 100 plus are there in Okinawa. I
Yep.
just think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in Japan, and I've not been there. So we would probably like to go there and eat a lot of sushi.
There you go. Favorite sport movie?
The Sandlot.
Oh, Wendy Peppercorn. That's right. Let's go. Squints
Yep.
is stealing that kiss, right?
hmm
Favorite sport to watch?
I mean, I guess I can't really say weightlifting, right? That's obvious, but
Sure, that's fine.
gymnastics.
Gymnastics.
Gymnastics or weightlifting.
My favorite gymnastics moment, bar none. I was um, laid up from a back injury in college, and um, let's see, 96, 96 Olympics. Carrie Strug
Very strong.
hitting that vault, and she already fucked up her ankle on the prior one, and she needs to hit it for the entire USA gold, right? And so she's on this broken ankle, busting ass down there and vaults it and hits it and sticks it, and she's on lands like on one foot, man. It is absolutely. Outstanding moment. How about you, favorite athlete to watch?
Wow.
Joel. Michael Jordan,
I love watching Maddie Rogers lift.
right?
I think she's fun to watch. There's always drama. There's always a show and something going on in the background of her life. But I followed her, I think, probably longer than any other weightlifter. Before I even did weightlifting, I followed Maddie. And she's a former gymnast, so it's been interesting to watch her career progression. And I love her lifts. I think they're beautiful.
Yeah, she's outstanding. Favorite book or a couple books?
Harry Potter series. I'm a Harry Potter nerd at heart. Growing up, I read them all a million times. So Harry Potter, and then Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Great mindset book. Really interesting. Very powerful story there.
I'm writing that down. I always like books. As you can tell, there's a whole bunch behind me.
And then Why We Sleep, of course, is I'm not done with it yet, but it's certainly been up there at the top.
You pick a movie or a book, if you said Harry Potter, I have an idea who it might be, but any kind of storyline, favorite superhero and supervillain.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'm not a comic book superhero person, so I don't know.
It could be Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs.
I haven't actually seen that movie. I haven't seen a lot of movies.
Don't watch it before you go to sleep. That's not going to work well for you.
I will not. I don't know. I pass. I have no idea.
Gotcha. Snatch or clean and jerk?
Ask me tomorrow, I might have a different answer, but today it's snatch.
Okay.
It changes all the time.
If you had 10 million, would you keep lifting? Would you keep doing what you're doing? Or just focus on the foundation? Or, what does that life look like?
I definitely would keep lifting.
Okay.
I love the sport. I'm enjoying it. But I would give a lot of it to the foundation and just be able to help more veterans, more first responders, more people who are deserving of that type of knowledge, resources, services, things that people who've served selflessly and have lost so much in the process. I just feel really called to give back in the best way that I can. So that's probably what I would do with that. And probably go to Japan as well.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite quote?
The first one that comes to mind is discipline equals freedom. I'm sure there's another one that I like, but I can't think of at the moment.
Awesome. Rebecca, thank you for the time today. Thank you for the knowledge. Really learned a lot. Learned more about the sleep. I learned a lot more about a lot of things and what you guys are about. And it's impressive. And we're lucky to have you on. Very humbling. So thank you so much for the time today. It was great having you on.
Thank you both for your time. I appreciate it. Great to chat with you. More to
For
come.
sure.